The following marketing information and discussion is provided for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as professional guidance or consultancy. You should find an agency for that. Comexis is a digital marketing agency, so feel free to hire us. But otherwise, just enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to The Buyer's Journey by Comexis, a discussion-based podcast on the ever-changing marketing landscape that affects how your customers and clients purchase, ultimately optimizing your marketing efforts. I'm Matthew McGroarty, the social media content producer here at Comexis.
I'm Len Ward, the managing partner at Comexis.
And I'm Josh Lyons, the digital marketing coordinator here at Comexis.
So it is Thursday, and typically on Thursdays we talk about the retention phase of the buyer's journey, and while the article we're going to discuss technically talks about retention in the sense of attempting to retain users, having new users, things like that. We're not really going to be talking about that. What we are going to be talking about is an article by Amy Gesson-Hughes about Facebook having reportedly lost 15 million users. However, marketers in general, both who Amy Gesson-Hughes talked to, and also I think we as Comexis are not particularly fazed by these numbers, and I'll get into them. So today we're talking about Facebook. Len, can you tell me where Facebook typically lives on the buyer's journey?
So Facebook in the buyer's journey lives in the awareness campaign, the consideration campaign, to a point to purchase campaign if you're doing what's called a retargeting campaign where you're constantly showing the ad or the pair of sneakers that the person was purchasing that may trigger the purchase, but I don't really like it living there. And lastly, actually, believe it or not, the retention and the advocacy stage. So because if somebody is an existing client, you can actually develop a campaign to them on Facebook that's kind of getting you back, demos to learn how to use the product more, advocacy, obviously, where you can have somebody share their story on Facebook. So Facebook is the one platform that I really like, even like Instagram, where it almost lives across the entire buyer's journey, where other things don't necessarily live across the entire buyer's journey, where something like social, like Facebook, truly does.
So according to a report from Edison Research, Facebook has lost an estimated 15 million users in the US during the last 2 years. The firm's The Infinite Dial 2019 surveyed 1,500 US citizens aged 12 years and older and found that Facebook usage overall has dropped from 67% to 61% in 2 years' time, and with the 12 to 34 years age segment down from 82 million in 2017 to 65 million this year. There's also some Twitter stats, which we might get into later. However, while the report showed that Facebook users' numbers were dropping, Instagram's numbers were increasing steadily. So Instagram's audience reach was still much smaller than Facebook's, but Edison's survey found Instagram usage had climbed from 34% in 2017 to 39%. And it is important to remember that Facebook owns Instagram, so that's still a nice steady rise. So, just having these numbers in front of you, what do we think in general?
I mean, these numbers they're getting antiquated, and I'll tell you why they're getting antiquated. Because you historically, from an investment standpoint, to invest in a stock like Facebook or to see how strong the company is, growth-wise, especially something new, you're concerned about how many new users come to the site, or how many users do they currently have. That's good. The problem is the metrics you have to look at. You have to start looking at how much time are they spending on the site. There's only so many people in the world, that are going to hit these things. You're going to hit a capitulation point, and you're hitting that. So Facebook, I don't know, what's the total users? Maybe there's 1 billion users.
So that's a good point. I was actually going to bring this up. While they have lost 15 million users, the platform still has 1.5 billion daily active users.
So, obviously there's a lot more people in the world than 1.5 billion, but you have to, how many people have access to technology? How many people are considered something that would be on social media? So I think to look at this is more, am I seeing an increase screen time on Facebook vehicles? Am I seeing an increased screen time and interaction on Twitter opposed to how many new users and do they have? That's from an advertising standpoint, that what I'm looking for. So if I'm noticing that Facebook has a more increased time on their users, that's going to lend me to lead more ad dollars into the awareness stage, consideration stage, purchase all the way through. And as we know, Instagram, you'll maybe do this later on, announce you can now do purchase via Instagram, which was done today. We'll talk about that later. So I'm looking for things that are signaling, okay, well, they're going to spend more time on the site. I think these numbers, you're going to start seeing less of a focus on these numbers going forward, because I think these numbers are becoming more and more or less irrelevant. Because in this article, and correct me if I'm wrong, are they mentioning fake accounts?
That was
Spoof
what I was
accounts.
gonna bring up.
Yeah, so, and these numbers of 15 million users own the 1.5 billion. Now, if you're going to come to me in every single quarter, they're losing 15 million, well, that's going to add up, or 50 million, that's going to add up. And yeah, that's concerning, but I definitely think the metric of time on site is going to rise way above how many users are actually on there. That's for me personally going forward.
Yeah, I think that you brought up a great point there, that this isn't like they're losing 15 million every quarter. This is over a span of 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to steal too much of Josh's thunder in
Nah,
regards
it's
to
cool.
bots, but 15 million bot accounts could have been banned over 2 years. That's not unreasonable. Anyway, Josh, go.
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I mean, to sort of tie everything in, it was more about how while you're losing that percentage or that amount of users, you don't take into consideration that a lot of them are bots, a lot of them are maybe old accounts that haven't been used in a while. And when Facebook does their purge to get rid of some sort of irrelevant accounts, you get more quality on the site than the quantity. Mm-hmm. So when you do look into the time on site or the usage, it actually becomes more relevant now, because while you're losing people, you can still get quality users to continue to stay on the site and use the site. So I don't think the number lost makes that big of a deal, unless it turned into a thing like you said, Matt, where they're losing 15 million every quarter or every half a year. But since it's been over a couple of years, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think to touch on one of your points, one of the individuals that Gesson Hughes interviewed, which I did not properly note, so I will note it in the blog post, so check there for who specifically said this, mentioned that Facebook's most recent earnings report wasn't showing any major impact from drop in usage, with ad revenue climbing to $16.6 billion during the fourth quarter of 2018. And in fact, the company reported the average price of an ad decreased 2%, while ad impressions were up 34%. So clearly, the loss of 15 million users has not had any influence on how many people are on the site, how long they're staying, what kind of impressions ads are getting, and things like that. Speaking of which, Len, would you mind telling us just a little bit about, the power of marketing on Facebook and why we think it's such a good idea?
Yeah, to me, you are in the absolute golden era of Facebook and Instagram marketing, even Twitter and so forth. You can get into these vehicles very, very affordably. We find the numbers, the metrics, everything about it tremendous. Working people through the buyer's journey is phenomenal. From an awareness standpoint, if you are not, I don't care what business you're in. Oh, that's not my, I don't care what you're in. If your awareness journey is not starting with basic either video or static image ads that are going on Facebook where you try to target your marketplace, you are completely not starting the buyer's journey off in the right place. I don't care if you're B2B, B2C, I don't care where you are, because it's not about business being transacted on business or business being business transactions happening on Facebook, B2B, or it's not about, my type of business isn't on there. The problem is the average individual will spend about 6 minutes a day, and I think that we have to find that number. We'll spend minimum 6 minutes a day on Facebook, or visit, I think it's 6 times a day. I forget, we got to find those metrics before we post this on the blog. And that's where you're just making sure that your ad is in front of your potential buyer on something that they're at on a daily basis. Too many times in advertising, especially digital marketing, everybody's more concerned about putting their ads where they think their business is being conducted. You got to think about the human being getting in their car, driving, on the train, pulling up their phone. You're getting in front of them, that's how you want to get in front of them from an ad perspective. So don't limit yourself to thinking, well, my business doesn't do business on Facebook. They may not, but the people at the business you want to do business with, they are on Facebook and they are on Instagram. So your ads should start there. So I'm off my high horse now.
Yeah, I think that was fantastic, and I think one of the other points to consider too, when you're doing awareness campaigns and consideration campaigns as well, but in this case specifically awareness, is how many impressions and ads does somebody need to see before they ultimately decide to end up making that purchase and converting? And I believe, last I checked, that number was around, 8 or 10 or so?
About 10, and that's great, because that's a metric we go with. On the awareness stage, one of the ways in which we judge, or one of the KPIs we look at, is how many impressions does it take for an individual to actually take some sort of action on the ad and then move into the consideration phase. So how many times did our ad or video have to be shown to a unique individual for them finally to click, fill out an email form or actually come to the website, interact. At that point, we can develop a baseline number that your client has to invest every time they roll out a new product or they're going to a new marketplace. They know what they have to invest in the awareness stage on Facebook or Instagram to move to the consideration phase.
There you go. Well, one final note, just to sort of wrap everything up. Gesson Hughes spoke to Steve Weiss, who's a CEO of digital marketing agency Mute6, and he basically talked about how while younger demographics are sort of shifting a little bit to Instagram and Snapchat, I know me and Josh was actually just telling us before the show, his Facebook habits and mine are pretty similar in that we do go on it, we post occasionally, but for the most part, we're just kind of there to keep up to date with whatever's happening with family, stuff like that, whereas we're more likely to be on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram to some extent. Weiss did notice that the 55 plus segment were one of the small segments that actually had an increased usage since 2017. So if that is a demographic that you're going after, that's just something to keep in mind, that they're definitely on Facebook, and in fact their usage has increased since 2017.
Yeah, well, I mean, now that I think about it, like I've had multiple grandparents that are obviously in that 55 plus segment that didn't have Facebook maybe 5 years ago when we all were, and now because they want to stay, they want to see what I'm doing, they want to see what my parents are doing, they want to see what my cousins are doing, so they're using Facebook for that same aspect that I am right now, but to see their grandkids. And on top of that, you can now target them on Facebook. They didn't know what Facebook was. They didn't want to use it because it was, it just wasn't their style, and they weren't new, or they didn't understand how it worked. Now that they sort of want to fit in and understand how everything works on the social media world, they're using that to see us, but then on top of that, now they're on it more constantly, and you could hit them with those type of ads that fit their demographic. So that number, what was it, the 55 plus segment has increased since 2017? Yep. I bet it was been increasing even before that, maybe even 2015 or 2016.
It's the fastest growing segment on Facebook, and it's a matter of time where what really happens now is you want to try to find out what type of buying power or buying influence does Facebook have over that generation, which historically is sat in front of a TV or listened to a billboard. It's having a dramatic impact on them. Even some of the campaigns we're running right now, we're noticing that people over 55 are absolutely reacting to Facebook, which kind of leads directly into, if Facebook is able to prove that they're getting the over 55 to take some sort of action from an advertising standpoint, it's a matter of time before the people at Snapchat are going to see that. They're going to develop a product that is specifically geared towards the 55 plus who now can interact with that's my kids live on Snapchat. They're not Facebook. I mean, it's just, I think they have like 8 Facebook accounts each because they set it up for us. They walk away, never do anything again with it. But Instagram they live on, and Snapchat is absolutely the main thing. So Snapchat's a dark horse here to pay attention to, because my personal belief is sooner or later Facebook's going to come around and just drop a ton of money in front of Snapchat and say we're buying it, because Facebook knows that the bridge behind it is beginning to fall apart, that a lot of their audience is aging a little bit, and the quickest way to close that gap, even though they have Instagram, and then to kind of put a stranglehold on Google, is to turn around and to buy Snapchat. So
that's especially because Instagram had sort of took that same sort of structure that Snapchat had.
Oh, they stole it. Yeah, well, not stole, but yeah, they copied it and they perfected it.
They basically mirrored it to their own way, and if they then find a way to buy out Snapchat, then they completely cover that whole spectrum where, if you own both Snapchat and Instagram, like you literally own the world for that type of social media. For that
generation, and that's where you think, do they do it, or does somebody in, I know we're kind of getting off topic, but does somebody else come in and start looking at Snapchat? Does a Twitter Snapchat merge and say we can look at it this way? Does Google come in and say, because Google's now beginning to lose the e-com battle to Amazon, more people are starting to search at Amazon and eBay than Google, so all right, well, maybe we've got to go this way. So it's interesting to how it plays out, because it's funny, because the most undervalued stock and the most underutilized advertising platform out there is Snapchat, but yet to me, that's probably one of the most attractive assets for a company to purchase right now. I'd be very interested to see where it goes, and I definitely think Facebook is definitely swimming around there. So that's it in a nutshell.
All right.
We're done here today.
One small thing I wanted to note was when we talk about Instagram demographics, just so everybody knows, last I checked on the demographic split, it's pretty even. I think typically people who are 35 and younger tend to make up maybe 5% more, but for the most part it is pretty even. So if you're also going after 55 plus demographic, Instagram still a viable way, plus Facebook advertising links right in. So don't even have to worry about it. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today's episode of The Buyer's Journey. Check us out on Comexis.com, YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcasts, such as the iTunes podcast store, and follow us on Twitter at buyers_journey. Thanks for listening.